Hello everyone and welcome to the 5th Breaking Barriers webinar from the PGMOL. Now the previous 4 sessions have been so insightful. There's been some fascinating stories and experiences shared, so I'm really excited about today. And the focus of this discussion today will be around diversity within refereeing. So we're going to be hearing from some really inspirational people within the game. But before we get going, let's hear from Mike Riley, the MD of the PGMOL, who's got a few words to welcome you all.
Thanks, Bella. And I'm sorry I'm unable to come to you live today. Unfortunately, it's end of season meetings. But rest assured, as soon as our meetings are done, I'll be watching the webinar back as soon as I possibly can. So welcome everybody to the 5th in our Breaking Barriers season. The series has been really insightful throughout, with a superb panel for each episode. And I know that today's webinar will be equally top class. The PGMOL are committed to making rapid progress in diversifying our profession. We want to ensure referees from underrepresented backgrounds are supported every step of the way. And I'm delighted that we have such a great panel of speakers with us today to help us underline the message and, importantly, to pass on vital advice and guidance. We want everyone to have the opportunity of walking out to officiate from grassroots level to cup finals at Wembley Stadium, knowing that they have the support of their colleagues and that all of us in PGMOL will do everything that we can to help bring the game forward. A really big thank you to both Patsy and Rebecca for giving up their time today to share their stories and experience of refereeing. They are both inspiring, community heroines, doing the profession really proud. Thanks also to Les, who offers us a different perspective here, from both as a former player and now as Director of Football. And I really hope that Les fails to mention any occasion he received a yellow card from me many moons ago in his playing and my refereeing days. Rebecca is also part of the PGMOL's Inclusiveness Advisory Group. And our goal at IAG is to put diversity, equality and inclusion at the heart of everything that we do, to listen to our communities and to make sure that step by step our people are reflective of all of our communities. This session is another good step forward in helping us to achieve that. And I really hope that you learn from it, spread the word and join us again going forward. Lastly, a big welcome to those of you joining us live via our Twitter account. We're delighted to be able to stream Breaking Barriers live to the world. Bella, thank you for getting involved today. We're really looking forward to listening and learning from these superb people and true trailblazers. And to get the best out of them now, back to you.
Oh, that was a lovely message there from Mike. Okay, so time now for me then to formally introduce our special guests. First up, we have Patsy Andrews, who referees 4 games in Kent at grassroots level. Really looking forward to hearing about Patsy's inspiring story. I'd also like to welcome football royalty to the panel, proud member of the Premier League's 100 Club, former England striker and now Queen's Park Rangers Director of Football, Sir Ferdinand. And also, finally, Rebecca Welch, a true trailblazer in her own right, recently becoming the very first female referee appointed to an EFL match. At this point, I should just introduce myself as well. So Bella Shah, I'm a presenter at Sky Sports News. I've worked there for nearly 3 years. It really is my dream job. Prior to that, I worked at the BBC, Channel 5, TalkSport, Premier League Productions. And before journalism, I was actually a lawyer and I worked for ITV Sports. But that is enough about me. Let's get to the panel. Patsy, really great to have you with us. I'd love to start with you and just find out a bit about your background, where you grew up, the community that you were a part of.
Okay, so my background is that I live in Leicester, which is where I grew up. My family are from Antigua in the Caribbean. And yeah, that was my background in terms of where I grew up and where I was born, really.
And what was your relationship with football like when you were growing up? Did you play previously?
I had no interest in football. My sports was netball and basketball. I became, if you can call it, interested in football when I became the taxi service for my children, because my son wanted to play football and my daughter also played football. So that was how football and me got together, really, by being their mummy taxi. So
And then how did that lead to you making the decision on a career as a referee?
So it was one of the occasions I went to pick my son up from football, and whilst there, the manager turned around to everybody when they were collecting the children and said, "Does anyone want to be a football referee?" I'm a joker. Everyone who knows me knows I like to have a joke. And at that point, I hadn't seen any women referees when I took my children. I hadn't seen any black referees when I took my children. So I put my hand up and said, "Oh, I'll do it." Then I was kind of faced with a response, I quote, "I wasn't speaking to you, Patsy, I was talking to the dads." Whilst I laughed at that, and whilst everyone else laughed at that, because at the time I knew I hadn't seen any black female referees, it was something that stayed with me when I went home, because as far as I'm concerned, I raised my children to be anything they want to be in life. Because you're a woman, because you're black, it's not supposed to deter them. And so I went home, and it just made me feel that somebody was actually teaching my children a lesson that I wasn't prepared to accept, and decided on the Monday to phone up the local FA and book myself on a referee course, because I couldn't allow that message to go to my children or my grandchildren or my family or my community, really. As black people, we can do things, and we should be encouraged to do that. So that was how I started out, really. It was a joke, but there you go.
That is a really fascinating insight into how you got going. And we're going to come back to your story in much more detail. I'd like to bring in Rebecca now and hear about your first steps into the profession.
Yeah, so I was a player. So I played for quite a number of years, a lot more when I was younger, and then again when I was 18, just at local level. And I really enjoyed it, but I was never ever going to be a star striker. So got it in it through one of my really good friends who used to ref us, and I used to always criticise the decisions. And she kind of said, "Well, if you think it's that easy, then go and do the course." And I went and done the course, never thinking I want to be a referee. It was more to kind of enhance my knowledge of the laws of the game, so that when I played, I knew a little bit more about the sport I played. And yeah, we had to do 5 games to qualify, and I kind of got the bug and never really looked back.
Why do you think women are underrepresented in this profession, Rebecca?
I think some are a bit apprehensive about maybe going into the male game. I know when I first qualified and we had to do 5 games, my first 2, I chose to go and do it in a women's university league. Went along there 2 weeks on the trot, and both weeks I felt really comfortable because everybody was female, everybody looked like me, so I felt like I was in my comfort zone. I was then asked to do a male game on the Saturday afternoon in a men's league in Sunderland, and I was really apprehensive about it because I thought, well, they're not used to seeing a female referee. And probably for the first 12 months of me going into that league, when I turned up at different grounds, people would look to go, "Oh, are you the ref?" And not in a derogatory way, just they weren't used to seeing it. So it always used to spark a conversation. I do think now that we've got the Women's League, we are seeing more girls getting into reffing, and especially with the implementation of the women's pathway, I do think that will help get more referees into football.
Well, 2 women there who've broken several barriers. I think now's a good time to bring in Sir Les. We'd love to hear about your transition from top Premier League star to now becoming the only black director of football across 92 professional clubs. How did you do it? Oh, I think, Les, you might be on mute.
Sorry.
There we go.
Here we go. Yeah, kind of strange. I came out of playing, and for a while I sort of went into doing a bit of media stuff and TV, and just keep myself involved in football without the day-to-day going into a training ground, which I've been doing for 20 odd years, and I wanted to give myself a bit of a break from that. And all the time I was kind of deciding what I wanted to do. So I ended up doing the TV bit for a while, and then I got the opportunity to go back in and coach at Tottenham. Harry Redknapp, when he was the manager, brought us back into Tottenham. And while I was there, I decided to do all my coaching badges. So I'm fully qualified. I've done my pro license. I've done everything I need to do along the coaching lines. didn't think I was going to get a manager just because of the colour of my skin. But I did all the badges because I didn't want anyone to say that if I did get an opportunity, it was because I got an opportunity because of my name. I wanted to have all the credentials. But while I was doing my coaching badges, the director of football role, I kind of ventured into that. I looked at what it was, what you needed to sort of like apply for it, and sort of like did some courses along the line of wanting to go that way, and decided I wanted to that was the way I wanted to go rather than go into management. I wanted to be a director of football because I always felt the management side could come after doing that if I felt like I really wanted to go along those lines.
So you say that you didn't think you could get, a manager's job because of the colour of your skin. Do you still feel like that now, for yourself, for others?
When I look at the amount of black players that and listen, for me, the media, all these different organisations play a part in this, because I think, when you come to the end of your career, and people say to me, Les, you've had a fantastic career. I look at Paul Ince, had a fantastic career. Sol Campbell's had a fantastic career. John Barnes, you give Ian Wright, you name loads of former black players that have had great careers. No one ever talks about them being a great manager. Now I'll see Steven Gerrard, I'll see Frank Lampard, I'll see, and don't get me wrong, I'm not having a go at Steve, any of these guys, great on them, they've had great careers. But the media and everybody around talks about them being great managers. They've got the credentials to be great managers. So they're seen as managers. Unfortunately, black former players are not seen as managers at this moment. Whether you go and do all your coaching badges, because I'm on this Black Coalition organisation that's out at the moment, and the amount of former black players that are on there that have got all the credentials yet still struggle to get a job. Yes, I do believe that this is still the problem today.
What about a referee, Les? Did you ever consider becoming a referee?
I gave referees too much stick when I was playing to ever consider it, to be honest with you.
I'm glad you said that and not me.
No, while I was playing, and you know what? I never considered it. Because I always felt like I was going to go and do something else rather than being a referee. But I think now, especially with VAR and the talk of perhaps having a player in at Osterley Park with those guys who are making the decisions, perhaps having a former player there to help with those decisions. I think more and more players coming out of the game now may see that as an avenue to go down.
Patsy, do you feel like there is a perception of what a ref is like or should be like? And if so, how do we challenge that?
There's definitely a perception, and growing, getting more into the sport. For me, I think I go with what Rebecca said. Everywhere I went, people weren't expecting me to turn up. In fact, I had someone say, I've had many people look at me, I thought it was, okay. In Ireland, you name Patsy as a male. So the perception has always been that people expect white men to be referees, and definitely not a black woman, because what I've always been told is, do you know what you're doing? Why are you here? Even from my own community, people have sadly thought that, why is she doing it? She's not serious. So yeah, there's a perception which needs to change, because I also then get the positive comments. We're really glad we had you. You reflect our community. Our young people had a really good game because they actually found someone who can talk to them in their level. So yeah, there is a perception that does need changing, and I sadly don't think that there's been enough at the moment in order for that to change, to reflect as much as we need it to change in terms of the diversity that's in the game.
What you mentioned, some of the comments and people, not expecting you to be the referee. What were some of the biggest challenges for you at the start of your journey? And also, were there adequate facilities and support systems in place for you to be able to do your job?
No, when I first started, and we're talking 16, 17 years ago, I was always told to go into the changing room, which had the disabled sign on, to get changed. And one of the things for me, we had to wear, on those games, I had to be dressing up smart. And growing up in my family, smart clothes were the church clothes. So I'm putting on my church clothes to go into a toilet and the only place I can put my church clothes was on the toilet to get changed, just wasn't going to work. And so I very quickly started to put a stop to that and told my secretaries I will not be going to any games that do not have a room for me to change in. And then I was offered, why don't you get changed with the men? I'm a big woman. I'm not getting changed with men I don't know. So there was a lot of people having to get used to that as women, we are able to do things. So try and find us the right facilities and resources for us. The way I talk, obviously a lot of people see Black women as being aggressive, as being angry, and as soon as I open my mouth, no matter how I try to give that decision, that's how players interpreted that. Until they got to know me, it was always a challenge because people didn't want me telling them what to do. And so I had a few comments along those lines. I ain't listening to you. You need to go back to another places. Because those myths are still there, sadly, for some people. As Black people, we don't fit in. Yeah. So they were just some of the examples which I've had to kind of work my way around. And one of the things that I got praised about is you're always smiling, you're always having a laugh. But I've had to learn to do that in order for me to survive, in order for me to give decisions without getting my face busted, if I put it as bluntly as that.
It's such a tough job, isn't it? And Rebecca, you became the first female to be appointed to referee an EFL match. It was the League Two game between Harrogate Town and Port Vale. Talk us through the emotions that you were feeling when you received that call, and some of your memories of the match would be great as well.
Yeah, so I'd been on a game at Kings Lynn on the Saturday, and if I'm from the northeast of England, so any drive for me is quite a long drive. So I get in the car to come back, and Mike Jones started flashing up on my phone, and my initial thought was, "Oh God, what have I done?" Because that was what I was thinking, and I was thinking back to the game, thinking, everyone seemed to be quite happy. And yeah, he said, we'd like to offer you a development game in the EFL. It's going to be on Bank Holiday Monday, which was the Easter weekend, and it's going to be at Harrogate. Would you be prepared to do it? And I was a little bit gobsmacked, really, because, okay, so I knew I'd been having a good season, but I didn't expect that call to come. Obviously, was delighted to accept the appointment. Yeah, and then from there, it was kind of a mad 5 weeks, really. We had a few days before the game where we'd done a lot of media. But then we needed to have some time between that stopping in the game so I could prepare for the game. And the match day was just like any other. I had a great team around us. We got to the ground as we do 2 hours before. And as soon as you walk through the ground, it was just like a normal match day. The teams were exactly the same as what they are on any other match day, which I was quite pleased about. What I was scared of was that the players would act differently because of all the media attention around the game. But yeah, after 5 minutes, I think the first 5-10 minutes, nobody really said anything. And I start thinking, nobody's criticising me. Everybody's really agreeing with what I'm doing. And then after about 8-10 minutes, people then start criticising. I felt a little bit more comfortable with that then. But yeah, the game went well. Nobody was talking about us at the end. And as a referee, you want to come off any game where people are talking about the game and not about any decisions that have been made.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Just how big a moment will it be, Rebecca, when we see the first female referee in the Premier League? I mean, there are female referees in the Bundesliga and Ligue 1, so surely it shouldn't be too far away.
Yeah, I think, we've got Stephanie in France, and we've got Bibiana, and, they're great referees and deserve to be where they are. So yeah, definitely, I do think we'll see a female referee in the Premier League soon. It's very difficult to get promoted as a referee. We have a lot of good referees, both male and female, and you've got to be in that top 1 or 2% to get promoted to the next level. So yeah, listen, hopefully it'll be me, but if it's not me, then it will be somebody else, because I see we've got some great young girls coming through who've got years ahead of them in their career. So yeah, I think we definitely will see that.
Les, I want to just come back to your relationship with referees as a player, and I just want to know, how has it changed now that you're in the boardroom?
From a player, I mean, it changed while I was a player. I've got to be honest. When I first got into football, it was a real relationship that you had with referees. It almost to the point of a bit of banter with referees. At times a referee would give a decision, I'd go, Jesus, that was whatever. And he'd turn around and say, Les, I've just seen you do that over there a minute ago. You made a mistake as well. And I go, okay, fair enough. And you could have that sort of chat, and you could have a go. He'd have a go back at you, and everyone was happy. And then over, I suppose it's probably since the introduction of the Premier League, and things got scrutinised a little bit more. I think referees have become a little bit more robotic in what they do, and the decision's a decision without a conversation. Whereas before you was able to have a conversation. So I've seen that change over my playing career when I did play. Now I'm in the boardroom. I suppose I just get as frustrated as everybody else that sits up there on any given Saturday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever day you play. But, I do understand the role of the referee because, I sit up in the stand, and when people sit up in the stand, you're the best right back, you're the best centre forward, you're the best defender, you score every single goal, you save every single save, and you make every right decision as a referee as well. So I do understand the hardship of a referee, and I do admire what they do, although when I played, I probably wasn't as big an admirer as I am now.
How do you think, Les, you would have felt if you had had a female referee whilst you were playing? It would have been groundbreaking at the time, wouldn't it? I mean, it's groundbreaking now. It shouldn't be, but it is. But how would you think you would have reacted if that was when you were playing?
I think it's certainly different now because we're seeing females in all aspects of sport now. The presenters, you name it, women are involved in football now. And so it's not a matter of when it's, or if it's when the next the female referee comes along. And I think everybody's expecting it. Back in the day when I played, it was a very male-dominated sport. You kind of like, even the supporters, you didn't see that many women, in the stand when I first started playing, and that's changed. So I think all round it's changed for the better, and I think everybody's waiting to see that the first female referee. She'll get as much stick as the male referee, so that they'll feel in good company. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Patsy, I want to come back to you, and this is quite a tricky one, but how do you think we can inspire people from underrepresented groups to take up the profession? Because we know there is a real love for the game out there. So how do we get these people from these groups to take the next step?
That's really difficult because for me, the grassroots football is where they've been getting some really good. I know Rebecca talked about there's a lot of good females who are now coming into the sport. Not enough black females, but there's a lot of good females. And grassroots leagues are able to support them maintaining their referee status. The difficulty that I see arises, and no disrespect for when you get to those higher levels, everyone's got to aim for something big in life. I encourage my son to aim for something big. But what happens is it becomes so far removed from grassroots, and then people start to see that the odd one or two trickle through every once in a while. People start to see that the expectation is that you start to give up who you are as a person. And so therefore, people don't want to do that. They want to referee, they want to apply the laws of the game, but they still want to be who they are. But unfortunately, what I see, and I can only speak from what I've seen with my son, for example, who is a championship referee, the expectations become huge in terms of, don't talk to the players too much. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't wear your hair in plaits because it doesn't look professional. So when people are looking at what you are expected to change, people then don't want to come in and stay in refereeing because we're not allowing them to be who they want to be and apply the laws of the game. What we're trying to do is change them into something else. And then we're losing the whole ethos, in my view. The community wants to see people who reflect the community, not reflect or assimilate to the point they no longer know where they've come from.
You mentioned your son there, Patsy. Would you like to share the story of your son and your nephew? Because you're a bit of a football family, aren't you?
We are now, obviously. So my son, he describes it that I forced him to go to a referee training course. I was a mother at the time, and my responsibility was to make sure my son was okay. He had a knee injury, and he was clearly told by the medical profession, you can't play football anymore. So all those mums out there who know when a child's been told, they can't play football or something they love anymore, we know what they want to go and do. They want to go and play it. So my decision at that point was to try and keep Akil in the game, but he couldn't play on the knee he had. So yeah, we went through a battle, and like I say, he would describe it slightly differently, but I took him to a referee course and I said, do it this way. And we had arguments probably for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the 6-week course. Every time I'm taking him to the course, we had a few debates. But now, all his friends who continue playing, all the games that he used to play, he doesn't look back, because he's achieved so much in his football career as a referee. It's been difficult. It's a real big learning journey for him, but he has achieved so much. And I don't think he's actually thanked me for taking him yet, but you know, he didn't even pay me back half the money, which was the deal. So, but he's there. He's achieved his dream, and he's worked really hard for that dream and made a lot of sacrifices in order to do that. And so, yeah, in terms of the family, at the time of Akil starting, my nephew, I think my nephews, one thing about me is when I've got games, all my nephews will come with me to my games, to tournaments. And so I encourage my bigger nephew, do you want to be a referee when you start university? It's another way of getting through. And he became a referee. And that's why I talk about grassroots football. Our leagues actually were so empowered by the fact that we had 3 referees. Jamal, I have to name you, darling, Jamal from one family. And so one of the secretaries actually put us on a final together. And so it was just so amazing. You've got mum, you've got son, you've got nephew. Actually, the 3 of us were the officials on that game. And so we've just kept that spirit alive. We've taught our community that as a family, as a black family who still try and keep it real, it's such a beautiful thing when you actually can referee together. And just ending on Sunday, I'd done a game, and on the pitch next to me was my son reffing. It's beautiful.
That is so nice. It's such a lovely story. But it's not always easy, is it? I mean, on the pitch, you can have hard days. Rebecca, how do you handle it when you have had a hard day, you know, on the pitch? How do you deal with it afterwards?
Yeah, it is difficult. You know, I'd always say that it's like any job. There's good days and bad days, and the good certainly outweigh the bad. But yeah, when the bad, it can be a long drive home. If you've got 3 or 4 hours in the car, you do play things over in your head. And ultimately, at my level, we make a decision and can't change it. We make the decision and you live or die by it, really. So yeah, listen, we don't like getting things wrong. I think sometimes fans, players, managers think it doesn't affect us if we get things wrong, but actually it's totally the opposite. It really affects us, not just in promotion and demotion, but also as people. You know, myself and Patsy go out, and regardless whether that's an under 8 game on a Saturday morning or it's a game in the AFL, we want to get every decision right, and we want to apply the laws of the game correctly. You know, sometimes we do get it wrong because we're human, we make mistakes. It's a very unforgiving place when a referee makes a mistake, depending on where that mistake is. But yeah, it can be tough. And I always say you need 2 groups of people around you. So you need people who are referees and know what you're talking about to lean on. But then you also need that cohort of people who are not referees, who don't know anything about it. So my group of people are my mum and dad. My mum knows very, very little about football. She always asks if I've won when I've come home, so I still don't think she understands it. But yeah, you know, I turn to them because they can really bring us back into the real world and really generalize that. It's one decision. It doesn't make you a bad referee. Also, one decision doesn't make you an excellent referee. So yeah, you have bad days, but it's important that you talk to people and you speak to it, and you do come through them bad days and also obviously learn from it. Yeah,
that's a really good way of looking at it. And Les, how do you bounce back from a hard day at work? And also, I mean, recently, over the last year, we've seen some really hard and heavy stories in the news. You know, the Black Lives Matter movement, trying to tackle racism and discrimination. And it's been a lot for people that have ever been affected by any of those types of issues. How do you deal with that and also still go about all your daily professional life?
Bella, it's really interesting because, you know, you talk about a year, which we've had, and obviously the killing of George Floyd has brought it to everybody's attention. But I talk to people and I say I've been doing this for nearly 30 years, talking about this same subject, and hence why I don't want to wear another badge. I don't want to wear another T-shirt. I want action. We've talked about it for so long. The only and I don't want to call it a positive to come out of the George Floyd is that the whole world had stopped. We'd seen police brutality in America and people lose their lives in the past, but the day after it happens, everybody says, yes, okay, this is bad, we can't let this carry on. But then everybody gets on with their lives. This time around, no one had any lives to go back to because we were all stuck inside. And so everyone took notice of it, and it's become a big thing, and it's become a really massive issue, which it needed to be. But it's, I've been talking about this for, 30 years now, 25 years at least, talking about this same subject. And my team didn't, the club I'm at, we had a discussion about taking a knee, and I don't want people to take the knee because they feel it's the politically right thing to do. Because I think in football now, there's lots of people saying the politically right thing, but not doing the right thing. And so I want people to do and take action, not to just talk about it. And I think that's where we are at the moment. Too much talk and not enough action. So the boys at the football club decided not to take the knee, and I backed that because I felt the gesture was powerful at the beginning, but all I was saying to people was, I want action. I don't want them to just give us this gesture, let's take the knee, and think that's enough. It's not enough. The subjects we're talking about now, black people in football, it's been going on for too long without enough being done about it.
Mm. And how do we get more diversity into the boardrooms like yourself? Not just counting the numbers of how many black or people from ethnic minority backgrounds are in an organization, but throughout the ranks of an organization. And how do we get there, Les?
I think it has to start at the top. I mean, the main organisation is the FA. And you look at the FA and there's no one of any colour in any position of power or prominence at the FA. So if it doesn't start at the top, it's very, very difficult for it to filter its way down. And that's what we're struggling with. Football clubs for generations and generations have been the same way. It's been male, pale, and very, very stale, and no one wants to change that. And that has to start at the top. If the FA don't want to do anything about it, it's very, very difficult to force anybody else's hand. I know we've spoken about a Rooney Rule coming into existence where we can't give an opportunity for someone to come through the door and have an interview. And I've always said with the Premier League that never happens because the Premier League know who the next manager is before they've sacked the one they've got in place in the first instance. So you're never getting that opportunity to get through the door. They've tried to filter it down through the leagues, but that still doesn't seem to be making a difference. And
if you can try to put into words just how important it is to have diversity in football in general, in organizations, just how important it is, and having you being a director of football, how important is that?
I think Patsy summed it up right at the beginning when she first started speaking, and she said that she's taught her kids that they can be anything they want to be, regardless of their colour. And I'd like to think I've taught my kids the same thing. I want them to believe they could be anything they want to be in whatever industry they want to go into. They have to focus and want to be in that industry and apply themselves as best they can to be in that industry. And I think that's the way we need to teach people going forward. Don't ever believe that you can't do anything in this life, because there's too many people that will try and put you down and not allow you down that avenue. You have to keep striving for something if it's what you really want to do.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I would just also like to share at this point that the reason why I was a lawyer before I was a journalist and a presenter is because I didn't think it would ever be possible for me to be on screen, to be sitting next to, Jim White on deadline day or whatever it might be. And that is why representation really does matter. Patsy, for any young Black females watching this, or other women from, other ethnic minority backgrounds, advice or tips would you give them?
Firstly, I'd say don't let other people define who you are. Yeah, we are people, and we have the right to be in any profession or any walk of life we want to be in. And in the refereeing world, a lot of our children are playing the sport. A lot of our children are watching the sport. So don't allow other people's issues to stop us from trying to come into it, because I hear what's been said. It's got to start upstairs in terms of big change, but the grassroots level is the level. Without referees, we're not having Premiership referees. We're not having the game going ahead without grassroots referees. So to me, there's still the opportunity for us to come into grassroots. It's so important for us to do that. And it's so important to just hold on to the fact that we define who we are. We put the positives back into our community and stop waiting for the people to do that. Because the minute we start doing that and taking control of what we need in terms of positive imagery for our community, then this will never change. Because Leslie's right, we can't wait for the top to change. We have to infiltrate it. I use those words very lightly, but we have to get in here and we have to start to try and make people realise we can do this.
100%. Rebecca, you and your work is paving the way for so many other young women who want to follow that journey. If you could look back and tell a younger you, give your younger self some advice, what would it be?
I think it would just be probably a little bit like what Patsy and Les have said, is believe in yourself. I've come through as a female referee, so I've had experiences based around me being a female. Patsy comes from a totally different aspect, because not only is she a female, she's a black female, so her experiences is totally different. And I think, it's good for me to sit and listen to that. But yeah, I just think if you want to do something, you can do it. I always say that your biggest power is that you are you. And if you've got an idea in your head, whether that's refereeing, whether that's something totally unconnected to any type of sport, just go to it, give it your full commitment. But most of all, just enjoy it, because if we don't enjoy what we're choosing to do, why are we doing it?
Exactly.
There must be times, Rebecca, where you've felt, or have there been times, maybe not, where you have felt it's not for you, or you've been, you've had a comment said to you, or you may have read something and you may have, have you ever been put off doing what you do because of, an outside influence or a comment or something like that?
I think in the earlier days, I used to finish a game and look through Twitter. And I don't know why I didn't myself, and I've stopped doing that now. I did used to do that in the early days. So yeah, I think it's always nice to read the good stuff. However, we focus more on the bad stuff, even if that's only one comment. And if you had 100 comments and one was bad, I think as humans we always focus on that negative. So that was about just me putting in place, do I actually need to do that? Because actually these people who are seeing the negative stuff, it's not really important what they're saying. I'm quite a confident person where I know when I've done something wrong, I can sit down, I can evaluate, and I can move on and I can learn. So yeah, I quickly stopped doing that, because that did have a negative impact on me, not just as a referee, but as a person as well. And if you're getting them type of comments, it makes you not enjoy what you're doing as much.
Les, I'd love to know 3 pieces of advice that you could pass on to the next generation. Some words of wisdom from you, Sir Les.
I'm just taking on board.
Words of wisdom. We've already had lots of words, some more words of wisdom, I should say.
I'm just I'm listening to what Rebecca said there, and talking about Twitter and all these social media outlets. I've never been on any of them, and I refuse to go on them, because I can't have someone comment about the work I do and they've never done it. Or am I going to argue with someone who's never played football, never refereed, never sat where I've sat, never done what I've done, and I'm going to argue with someone that's never done it because they've got an opinion about it? So I stay off all those social media platforms, because I don't think my opinion is that great, and I'm not really too interested in other people's opinion about what I do and how I do it. So it just makes me laugh when people talk about Twitter and stuff like that. But what words of advice can I give? It's just believing in yourself, and I think both the girls have said it. Listening to their stories, and I want to congratulate them both on what they've achieved and what they've done so far. And I know there's a lot more to come from both of them. but they've put themselves in an arena that is very, very, very difficult. It was always going to be very, very difficult, but they've gone through those difficult barriers, and now they're sitting here telling the tale. And so I think that's inspiration enough for anybody that's watching this or anybody that's listening to this to believe that if there's something that you really want to do, don't let anybody get in your way in trying to do it, as long as it's legal.
Yes, absolutely, as long as it's legal. Right, I think let's get some questions now, because we've had quite a few questions submitted for you guys. I'm going to start with this one. Les, I'm going to give this one to you. This is from Selene in Luton. How do you cope with the pressure knowing there is a large audience watching your every move?
When you're playing well, you actually love that large audience watching what you do. And I suppose when you're refereeing well, you like that audience watching what you're doing as well. I think we're all the same. When things are going badly, then that large audience causes you to shrink at times. But I think most footballers, and I think especially over this last year, we've gone through this pandemic where you go to a stadium and there's very, very few people in the stadium, just, directors from the opposition, your own directors are there. And some players have really struggled with that because we're in the entertainment business and you want people there to entertain. And when they're not, it is a real struggle. But like I said, when it's going great, it's brilliant.
And Rebecca, can I ask you the same question as well?
Yeah, I think Les has give a textbook answer there. So I went back on. I was fortunate enough to go to Chelsea in December when lockdown kind of lifted and we were allowing some fans in. So that was really strange because we walked out with Chelsea ladies and the crowd started to applaud the refs, which I don't think happens that often. And then Saturday I was out in National League and there was fans in there. I think there was about 700 in. So yeah, it's mad because I think you get so used to not having that noise, not having that background noise, and then coming back into it. It is a bit, apprehensive, but we need the fans back. It's what football is. It creates that atmosphere. It creates that little bit more adrenaline when you go out, not just for the players, but also for the refs as well.
Patsy, I'll give this one to you. This is from Steve Child, so PGMOL match observer and guest from the last session. Who was or is your role model?
Oh, when you say role model, okay, my son obviously inspires me when it comes to refereeing because he's done so well and he's gone through a lot of adversities to try and get people to see that he's serious. So he inspires me, the fact that he's stuck it, because some of the things he's gone through, I'm honest, if I was at his level, I wouldn't have been able to stick it at that point, yeah? And also, I have to take my hat off to all the grassroots referees out there. When I used to watch my children play football, and I used to see some of those referees and think, oh, gosh, I really didn't appreciate what they went through, and the fact that we were all getting up there every weekend, going out there and actually putting up with some of the things we have to put up with. And the recognition we get, I have to be honest and say, is nothing in comparison to the stick we get or the hassle we get every weekend. So I take my hats off, and they're my role models because they have done so well to actually prop this sport up in terms of refereeing without the praise and admiration they really deserve.
I'd love to know the other two of you as well, who your role models are. Les, can I start with you? Or maybe who your role model was when you were younger?
Oh, when I was younger.
Or now, either.
When I was growing up, I suppose Muhammad Ali was probably the role model that I looked up to. Really established himself as not only a sportsman, but a vehicle and a voice for black people and black men at a time when things were against him, stood for what he believed in. And so he was a massive role model for me. In terms of football, the late Laurie Cunningham, Cyril Regis, and Brendan Batson, because they were the first sort of like black players that I saw play on a regular basis. Because up until then, I loved football, I loved playing football, and I played at grassroots level. but never believing that I was going to be a professional footballer because I didn't see anybody that I could relate to. And those were probably the first guys that I saw on a regular playing on a regular basis that I felt, oh wow, okay, here's a profession that I could perhaps look at, but never believing that I was going to be a professional footballer.
And Rebecca?
Yeah, someone asked me this about a year ago, and I found it really difficult because a female in the sporting world when I was growing up, so I was born in 83, and I really struggled because I don't think there was that many around or really visible. So I always say, you know, I had parents, I had a grounded upbringing. I always say we didn't have a lot, you know, we didn't have a lot of money, but we were brought up on love, and they instilled the values and the respect I've took through my life. So yeah, I'd probably say me mum and dad, you know, even up until the point where obviously we've got Sean in the Premier League, so she's a great role model for young people coming through because they've seen that when they're young on the telly. But yeah, I really struggled with that. Whereas I think now, because we're seeing more females being visible within football and within sport and on the telly as pundits and presenters, then I think young girls now have got a lot of role models to look up to.
Yeah, I agree with that. Les, I think this is a good one for you. This is from Nick Phipps. Can you see ex-professionals ever becoming a ref? He says, I can't see it myself, but the Genev Cara video on Sky of them training and attempting to do it was superb. This is sort of another question, but it's sort of similar from Ralph Headley. How can we encourage players at the highest level to, when they come to the end of their playing career, stay involved and put the experience back in to help the next generation?
I think that's the best way to put it to them. I think they've gone through experiences, and I think I said right at the start of this, I think players coming out of the game now, more and more players may look at that avenue as an avenue as going down and as a way of staying in football and giving something back to football by becoming referees. Because, you know, you often hear players, you know, some of the guys that sit in the studios and talk about some of the decisions that the referees have made. They've made that decision based on the fact they haven't played and don't understand a genuine tackle from a mistake. And so I think more and more players coming out will perhaps look at refereeing, especially as they've made it professional now, and see that as an avenue. I certainly hope so anyway.
Patsy, I'll ask this question to you. Andy McAvoy, the FA Observer and referee, said, who has been your most inspirational person in refereeing? Apart from yourself.
It's similar to what I've answered, because I focused on referees in terms of my role model. Yeah. They're the ones who inspired me. I'm not going to name. Yeah, I'm being honest. I haven't had that amount of support or encouragement from high-level referees, so I can only focus on the support I've had from. I've had some really top support from the referee secretaries for the leagues I've been involved in, and they've really encouraged me and actually stood by me with some of my expectations when I'm reffing, because as I said, I have to go in there and be real to me and to my community, and the referee secretaries have actually stood by me, and they're all referees and know what it's like. So I can't go any higher than grassroots or my family and my friends.
Okay. Les, this is from Eddie Hughes, a retired former Football League referee. Do you think social media owners should do more, such as demanding users to prove their identity before using their platforms to abuse members of sports organisations, such as referees, players of all religions, etc.?
Yeah, 100%. I remember in the early days of all this stuff coming to fruition, I remember on occasions where people have done up fake identities of myself and gone on. And then I had to stand with a passport and a picture of myself and post it to these social media people to say, yeah, this is me, this is not my account, and I need it closed down. And I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, I've got to do this to get it closed down, but someone could put it up without any form of identity or anything like that, and say what they like on there and interact with people on there with people thinking it was me. Just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all. So I think that, I've said it for a long time, these media companies are making a lot of money out of this. They need to be held accountable for what's going on, because it's not just the people that's using their platforms, it's the people that's allowing them to use their platforms. They're the ones that need to be punished.
Rebecca, this is question from Jason Southall, who says, how long do you think it will be until there is a female referee in the Premier League? And Rebecca, is this something you aspire to?
Absolutely. I think, if I'm sitting here as a National League referee and I'm saying, okay, I want to just ref at National League and I don't want to go any further, then I probably shouldn't be there, because refereeing, you always want to get to the next step. You want to go as high as possible. So, I think definitely, obviously it takes some years to get through the levels. So I think definitely in the next 5 or 10 years, we will see a female in the Premier League. There is the systems in place where that can happen. Again, you've just got to be good enough. So I do think the implementation of the Women's Super League and the women referees on there, the development and education that we get, that, we're definitely going to see it. Like I say, I hope it's me. It might not be, and if it's not me, then it will be somebody else.
Patsy, you have touched on this in our discussion, but I just want to get across Jason's question to you, that why do you think there is such an underrepresentation of ethnically diverse referees at all levels, and what does real success look like for you?
Okay, why do I think the first question I would say is simply as this: because people's attitude in regards to how they perceive Black people is, in my view, still stuck on negatives. And so until that shifts, and until people actually start to respect the fact that we can maintain our beliefs, our culture, as well as apply the laws, until people accept that, sadly, the passing of Mr. Floyd, in terms of the murder of him, sadly, that Black Lives Matters will mean nothing until we go beyond. Actually, it's not just about our skin color. There's more to us than our skin color. So that's the first question. In terms of the second point, you talked about, what was that? Just remind me again.
Oh, it was, what does success look like to you?
Success for me is when I go out in the community and people can say thank you to me for refereeing a game. That is success. It's not just about being at the pinnacle of any career. The fact that the people on the ground level actually recognise that I'm trying to bring in positives into my community, that's a success for me, and that's a big achievement for me as a Black woman growing up in this country. So I'm still at that level of success, and that to me is good enough, because my grandchildren, my niece and nephews, and any of the friends that I'm around know that I'm trying really hard to reflect positivity for my community.
Rebecca, I'll ask you this question. It's from Garfield Bennett. What has been done to improve diversity in officiating at all levels in the UK?
So a couple of years ago, we had the implementation of the Women's Pathway, which gives females and males the opportunity to just solely go through the pathway in women's football. I'm currently doing some work with the Premier League Charitable Fund, where we're going into different club organisations and delivering referee workshops. So my view on it is, a lot of referees get into it because the dad done it, the mum done it, or somebody in the family was connected with refereeing. So a lot of people out there actually don't know it's an option or a pathway within sport. I get that every young person wants to be a footballer, and we're not there to bring that dream down, but the percentage of footballers who make it into the professional game is very small. So for example, the day we've been in a school starting in Manchester, delivering the first part of the referees course through the club community organisation. So I think it's really important to go out there and make people aware that this is available, getting into communities where they might not know this option even exists.
This isn't a question from the audience. This is actually a question from me to Les. But I was just wondering, as a player, you had the added pressure of the media, with the eyes of the media on you at all times. How has your relationship with the media changed now that you're in the boardroom?
It was a bit different, and I suppose it's changed now because a lot of my conversations with the media in the boardroom is about me being the only Black director of football in the 92 clubs, which is always a difficult conversation, not for myself but for them, because as much as we say we've advanced in football and things have changed, when you look around at managers, look at the boardroom, it's still very much the same in football. From when I played to now, although there's a lot more representation on the football pitch, there's even less in the boardrooms and on the touchlines, which is hard to take and a difficult conversation at times.
Right, I've got a question here. This is a good question. James Campwell. It's a big cup final. You are the referee or coach controlling the music for your team. You have to choose the last song your team listens to before they go out to start the game. What song do you choose? I'm going to come to Patsy first.
Wow. I'm trying to think. So I was listening to one. So I do like I Believe I Can Fly, because I believe that we can achieve anything we want to achieve in this world. So that's a positive. Wow. And to be quite honest, yeah, I can name some of my reggae artists and songs, but that one would come to me first. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Rebecca?
Okay, so my initial thought was the Steps song, because I was a massive Steps fan growing up, but I don't think Tragedy probably is the right song for referees to walk out to. So a lot of referees have Heather Small Proud playing, quite emotive, quite powerful, you know, really gets you in the mood. So yeah, I'd probably go Steps second last and then Proud last before we walk out.
Oh, that's a good one. What about you, Les?
As a referee?
As a coach, you were a coach, and you were your team's about to go out. What song are you going to play for them to get them ready?
What am I gonna get? When I was playing, what we used to do, everyone used to have their compilation. You know, they used to say each player to pick a song. Mine was LL Cool J, Something Like a Phenomenon.
What a big tune that is!
Go out to. Do you know what I mean? That makes me ready now. I feel like I want to play football now. If I listen to that, I want to play football.
Does that make you think of walking through the tunnel?
Exactly. It makes me feel like I want to go out and play. I just need a referee.
Love that. That is brilliant. I think that is a perfect note to end on, isn't it? It has been so fantastic speaking to you all. Honestly, I have learned so much from this session. It's been so insightful, and unfortunately, it's all we've got time for. It's gone so quick. So just a huge thank you to Patsy, Rebecca, and Sir Les for all your excellent advice and contributions. And Breaking Barriers will return next month to everyone that's watching. There's another awesome session planned, so do look out for details on that, and also keep an eye out for clips from today's session on social media. Not you, Les, you're not on it. Follow PGMOL Twitter and Instagram, and just search for @FA_PGMOL. And please do share your thoughts and your words of wisdom from today to really amplify the messages that we've been getting across. So thanks again, everyone, and let's all keep working together to diversify our industry. Take care.
Thank you.